welcome back to the Harlan Sweet channel. I should have sorted my hair out before the video started, but here we go. So this was my list that I took to a locals winner box event. That was really cool. We were sort of really hyping it and really pumping up for it for a few weeks. I live in like the sort of east of England area, and we just kind of got new management into our store, and we just really wanted to try and make it so we had a bit of a really bustling competitive scene. We did 4 rounds of Swiss into a top 8 cut. So yeah, it was really nice turnout. I can't remember how many it were. Can't really remember at all. But it was enough to do 4 rounds into a top 8 cut, which was yeah, really great event. Of course, I know my local area. I know what people like. I attend like 2 different locals and sometimes 3 a week, because I've got no life, it would seem. Um, but yeah, it sort of meant I knew what the sort of decks people like, what they like to play, and I kind of aimed to build something that would be really good for my local environment, which is exactly the same way that when you have a regional event coming up, you kind of look at what the decks that the majority of people would play are, and you try and build something for that. So when you look at a regional, you think, well, everyone's probably going to be playing Ruby Sapphire, so I'll try to build something that I think has fair game into Ruby Sapphire, and then you look at the odd few other matchups that there might be there as well, like the green purple and maybe some mirrors if you're going to pick another meta deck. And that's exactly what I did here. I knew Ruby Sapphire was going to be very prevalent, and we went for a ramp build, mainly because I was just really interested in playing Ariel again. I just really like the card, and I think right now, you know, at the top levels, maybe the meta moves very fast, but lower down, like people might be working off like an older version of a sailor list, or like they might be still not trying the be prepared, and some might not have the Tremaines anymore. So I think Ariel could just get tons of value. And to be honest with you, I didn't really know how much else I could do to shore up the matchup into Ruby Sapphire. I felt like Kiwi aggro is just, sometimes it's a die roll, sometimes it's how well they draw, stuff like that. And I knew I was going to be facing a lot of it, so I was like, I want to go ramp, I want to play Ariel, just for this instance, really. But yeah, besides that, I think the only other things you can really add to a list to improve the Ruby Sapphire matchup is like Kuzco and Hideaway, which to me, personally, I think you shouldn't be on the defensive into that matchup. You should be, because your defensive is not going to be beating their aggression. They're still, you in that sense you've got to like hide away 4 items from them and not ink those cards early on, and it's just not the best. So I think you just play aggression, you play aerial, you time your aerials to the right point. Maybe after they've used it, be prepared. Maybe after they've used it, Tremaine, and get the value and close it out. And you still have that benefit of being the Sapphire deck, which you'll probably play characters earlier to the board than them. So you'll have like Belle and Scrooge and maybe Tipo just questing for a little bit. Maybe Hiram gets a nice quest in there if you're very, very lucky. And you can get to that like 10 lore mark, and then you can aerial dime them for the game. And the other matchup as well was green purple. It's like I played at locals twice the week before, and I kind of knew the green purple deck was getting interested, like people like it, and also we still have like green yellow discard, and green steel is like picked up here and there sometimes. I think green right now is a really good deck to pick up if you just don't want to be on the Sapphire hype. You just want to play. You just don't want to be playing Sapphire. Basically, I think the discard and the disrupt has the best chance into the deck, so completely understand it. Of course, I'm biased as a Sapphire Steel boy who always plays Sapphire Steel, or mainly always play Sapphire Steel, about 90% Sapphire Steel, 10% other decks. But I think that the decks you struggle into the most, besides mirrors, which are fairly getting down to 50-50 margins with different cards, is the disrupt cards. You're going to have answers for Diablo. You're going to have to be able to play around that discard. You're going to have to be able to take the songs out of your hand and also control their board. And with green purple, they also play Genie. So if they're ripping a Zeus and then they play a Genie, your answers to get that card off the board have dropped significantly. So yeah, that was definitely another matchup to think about. And we did at one point have 3 Fire the Cannons and 3 Zeus, but we went back to 4 because we just thought, I just don't want to lose to I didn't answer a Diablo, so I just went, I'm going to give myself the best chance at Diablo. Didn't play against one Diablo deck until top 4, and then in that game, yeah, it was just the card was so useful. We did play into a friend Becca and the Chichamira, and I did aim to get Belle down to start challenging the Chicha. I only had strength ready to sing on there, but one of the games, we had the option to use Sail into Fire the Cannons on the Chicha, keep ramping, which would be an amazing spot. To be honest with you, Fire the Cannons just as like steel maps. Um, is really quite good. Like you can just add it up with the Zeus to add a bit more. You know, if your strength sings strength, but it didn't remove something, you can add a bit more. Scrooge hit, fire the cannons at Hiram. So surprisingly, the card ended up being quite valuable for the entire day. And with the list, I've tried to do this thing of so everything's a 4x or a 2x. So the cards I really want in the deck, I 4x them. And the cards that I think can be 2x, I've done that with the list. The only exception here was maybe Ariel could be a 4x, but of course she's uninkable, and that would just be playing with fire a bit there. So Tamatoa being a dime target that's uninkable is inkable, sorry, is very good. But yeah, it seemed very fine into the mirrors and all the other Sapphire decks, and into green purple it ended up doing the things that I wanted it to do, which is really awesome. Just going through the list though, yeah, we've got the ramp on 2 option here. So majority of the games, you play your item on turn 1 if you can, fire the cannons if you need to. You ramp on 2 with Sail or Tipo. This is very much Justin and Dave's style, and I'm going to go on a tangent here because I went to Sky's Cheater list. Like always respect Sky's list. I think they're amazing. The only issue I found with that was Cheater seems amazingly good in a hyper competitive environment where everyone's on Sapphire and everyone's on um, very meta strong decks. If you're gonna go into one that maybe has some like just aggro turn sideways decks, which you always expect to see in Swiss at events, it just happens. I just felt like I had no game plan into it. If I'm gonna play Cheater on 2 expecting to quill, I just really couldn't do much there. So I aim to always have this consistent thing of I'm going to do something turn 1, which is most likely going to be an item. I have to fire the cannons if I need it. I'm going to ramp on 2, and then I'm going to play Scrooge or Hiram, and I'm just going to do this aggressive game plan that, in a sense, Scrooge is a great body, great singer, guts you an item, gets you keep going with your item package stuff, but he also trades up with the board very nicely. Hiram draws you 2 cards, which should draw you into stuff that can start being put on the board to control it, and then he can sing your strength or Zeus or whatever. So it just felt that better than getting a 2-1 down and then most likely quilling on the next turn. So the next turn I also wouldn't be developing a character. No, just taking that turn 2 off to ramp, get into the Hiram or the Scrooge, and then start doing item stuff, and then getting to that 6 for the Toa, 7 for a Hades or a Simba, depending on what I needed, if I needed it. If I had to do other stuff, that's great. I took a turn off to relax and get some card draw, get a quill set up, and then later on, you can just be slamming Tamatoas against them to close that gap and win the game. Um, that was a massive tangent before I started explaining why each card is in the list. Yep, Tifo and Sail then. We ramp on 2 the same way Jack Shadows and Attack for 2 have been doing, and it just felt right. I hadn't been enjoying it for a while. I don't know why. I think it was I missed Scrooge too many times, and also a lot of other people were on the list as well. And it was like Mirror was just who goes first or second, and then it was like who got the Scrooge, who got the Hiram, who got the most items. But because the Sapphire Steel is such a varied color combo, it's like we end up playing against Cheater lists, so we both can do different things that are pretty impactful. Of course, if they got that Cheater to work, they would be way ahead. So every game I had to make sure that Cheater just didn't stick. And then you've still got like Oswald decks as well, where they're doing a different thing with their high rolls, and you're kind of hoping that they don't really pop off very well with the Oswald. Kind of the same game plan versus a Cheater list. But no, this one is just that we'll lock our ramp in on 2, and then we'll play from that ink advantage for the rest of the game. We'll get a quill set up if it's a Sapphire matchup if we need to, but majority of the time quills can just go in the inkwell, and that ramp on 2 is enough. You might even sometimes as well, like I have to get to a Simba or a Hades, so what I'll do is I'll ramp on 2, and then I might play another Sail one. So I ramp on 2 to get to 4, play Sail to get to the double link again, and then I'll be at the top range of my deck, so I could start using like any of these bigger options here between like Ariel to Simba. So that's really cool. 2P, it just feels criminal. I mean, Belle is in the deck because Belle is in the deck. Belle is in every Sapphire deck. I don't need to overstate that card. In the finals we played against Ruby Sapphire, that was like a hybrid of what's it called, like DKP list and Sisu. So it had the Sisu package, but it also had like Manas and Sharks. It was very interesting playing it's a sort of hybrid because you don't know which way they're going to go with it. Sometimes they go towards the coil and setting up and the big finale, and then sometimes they go more towards the Shark and things like that, and they kind of, I guess, make the decision on the matchup. Like Shark versus Sapphire Steel is not great because I just Zeus it and I move on with my life. But Manas can be awkward, so you could use that. But the Sisu coil control is always going to be good in pretty much every matchup. And they did have Be Prepared in there for the Ariel, so even to taunt out a Be Prepared, I had to use an Ariel sometimes just to get the first one out, and then hopefully they didn't play another one. I don't remember how many they played, but I think I only ever saw one. But what's interesting as well into that matchup we found is Belle was, if we get her down early and we do like a ramp into a Scrooge, we're threatening like 7 damage on board. So them using that, sometimes they turn to ramp and play a mana early because they just know it'd be very awkward for any deck to answer that, besides purple decks. They didn't do it because that we just were already going to hit for 7. On the snapback, they could take one thing out of the Maui or a Sisu, but we could easily answer that mana. And if we've popped for a Bell and we wanted the Scrooge down anyway, and it's found an item, we've got so much value out of those 2 cards anyway. It's fine. And them playing a Maui on a turn where we're like, great, we'll play our Hiram if you're just going to play that, and probably get rid of this Maui as well. So it was just great board presence, and again, against any of the aggro decks, it was pretty good. And you'd have these awesome turns where it's like, I've only got a little bit of ink to play with. Like I think I had 3 ink to play with, and I had like a Hiram and a Scrooge set up, and it was like quest with the Hiram, draw a Bell, pop an item for a Bell, play a Pete, and then sing strength or whatever. And I think we did that as well, and we also got a Tipo out with like the smaller amount of ink, which meant the strength hit for 5 and took out a Tamatoa in one of the games. So it's just like you can get another character on board for the very low cost of popping an item, which you just do all the time anyway with the deck. So yeah, it's very interesting to play a Bell differently rather than just in Kiwi, where it's just like we want it down turn 1 because it unlocks all the songs in our deck. But yeah, she's very interesting in ramp builds. And I've seen some of the players, like Justin Morales, I think was running lower accounts of it. Or was it Lamb? Jonathan Lamb might have been running like lower accounts of it. And I kind of weirdly agree because you want the items for Hiram. You don't use Belle as much, but she's also such a busted card that she makes sense in the list. 2 Pete's, like, just weird to run only 2 Pete's, but because it's just this, like, the way that Sky suggested Sapphire Steel, like no wheels were in the last set, you're playing this sort of checkmate game where you ramp up to the top end and then you play a Tamatoa, they answer it, great. You play another Tamatoa, they answer it. You play the third one and they don't answer it, and then you win the game. So you don't really need Pete, you don't really need to stall, you don't need to really stop anything. But I think he's still good for like if you get a discard deck, if you get Steel Song. Sometimes you play Ariel Pete and that's going to stop B Prep and Tremaine. You can do these still awesome things of it. Sadly, I can only really fit 2 in there, but it's such a busted card. It's just sort of, yeah, in this thing of I just want to ramp up and keep throwing threats at you until you run out of removal options. And there being 6 dime targets in this deck, we have a lot of threats to throw at them. And even if one sticks, we kind of just win the game. Even if the 6 cost Tamatoa sticks, we're going to get cheat out of 3 dime. We're going to get so much value that turn. So yeah, it's this interesting thing that I'd really like to run 4 Pete's, but just the amount that I can fit in the list is fine as well. And I think even in testing, I went down to 1 Pete, to the point where Pete is weirdly the flex spot in the list, which I still can't over-explain. But it's just, yeah, the only real amazing thing you can do is the Ariel Pete, or you can maybe get a late game Tamatoa Pete, but against like maybe what's it called? Like Ruby Sapphire, that won't really matter as much because they'll be doing coil stuff, they'll be doing all that coil nonsense. And in the mirror, like the most likely the answer to your Tamatoa is a Hades, so the Pete doesn't do much there either. So yeah, interesting card, interesting count of the card. But yeah, we just wanted to keep it at a healthy 2 just to fill out the deck. Hiram, yep, just Hiram and Scrooge package, amazing. I've talked so much about you just get them down on turn 3, you just ramp on 2 and play them on turn 3. So not much more to say on there. Scrooge is, I sometimes like to go Scrooge first into Hiram because then I've established something that can control the board. And even into Ruby Sapphire, it will just sit there questing for a bit until they answer it. And sometimes as well, they will Sisu or whatever, they'll coil and get rid of it. And then you're like, great, that means Hiram's probably going to be questing for more or have taken one of your answers out of your hand. So yeah, really cool package and a very, very linear line of ramp on 2, play one of these 2. So awesome inclusion. As I say, played the Ariels because I couldn't really think how to tech heavy for the Ruby Sapphire matchup. I thought like, well, Ariel's always done the job in the past. She can't be hit by coil when she quests for a ton. So I'm going to do that. I'd seen a lot exploring with just playing, cards that would ink their coils, but it just felt like I'd have to play so many and I'd have to answer all 4 because they play all 4. And if I let 1 get through, I mean, 2 is really horrible. But even 1, the amount of work they can do, if they have something like 1 coil out, a Great Stone Dragon, they can tap it once and then ink and they can minus your Tamatoa to the point it dies to a little CC. That is just mad that the game has gone this way, but that's the way it is. So I was like, I just need a character that has ward and can be hit dime tapped for a lot. So we put 2 in there. Like I say, she's such an amazing card and won me most of my games that I would love to play 4. But I can't. And even into the aggro matchups where they'd never play 1 item, you only need 1 item out. you have this thing where you sort of control the board for a little bit, and then you can play her, and then she's like a 4 turn clock where she's going to win you the game within 4 turns because that takes her to quest. And you can even bring that down to 3, if you've quest and then dime tap for whatever. So she's just I think she's my favorite dime target in the game. Besides maybe OG set one Belle, which was always fun to play, but I don't think at all is meta viable right now. There is something to be said about that card because if everything's basically a CC target because of coil, you might as everything that's not got ward is basically a CC target. You might as well just play it because the coil's not getting any more value out of it, because it can't go lower than that. And if they're coiling and CCing your Tamatoa, it doesn't matter really at this point. But no, Ariel is just very good for that. And I say I'd try to play more copies if I could, but I'm at 12 uninkables, and even that felt like a push. Like I still had games where I full mulliganed and I got like 2 or 3 uninkables that meant I had to start inking the things I wanted, but I also had to do that deep mulligan because I had to find the turn 2 ramp because the deck doesn't function properly if you don't use that turn 2 ramp. So yeah, I'd really like to bring that down to 11 if I could, but even still, I don't know what the percentage chance of opening with X amount of uninkables in your hand is with going to from 12 to 11. So I don't know the maths on these things. I just looked at what everyone else is playing, and most of them are hovering around 11, going up to 12. Um, I think if you're a Cheech deck, you could probably go a bit higher, but I think even Skies was only on 11. But yeah, it was kind of interesting. We don't have the Let Storms in here, which let us play more Uninkables. That's the card that Dave and Justin had. We do have the Fire the Cannons to bring the Uninkables up, which is pretty much a straight replacement. 6 cost Tamatoa, like the thing that just has to be answered instantly. And sometimes you can play something out and they Zeus it, and you go, that's amazing for me because I'm going to play. This is in the mirror, sorry. I'm going to play Tamatoa, and then it's going to stick and give me a free dime. And then um, if you can get the free dime out, like the tempo swing you get from that, just it ends up just winning you the game. Like there's just nothing else like it. It's like you gain 2 lore from the quest, you get a free dime out, and then continuously for the rest of the game you get to dime tap things and gain free lore. And if they remove it, it didn't really cost you anything because you played it for free. So the card's just insanely busted. And there's also a resource engine as well that gets you 2 items back that you can play again and probably draw into another Hiram and keep drawing cards. It's just too insane. I don't know why it's in the game. It's just nuts. And the only thing you have to do is kind of make them like use a Zeus or use their removal first on something else, and then you play it. So playing it on 6 is fine if you need the 2 items back to get your Hiram or to get your whatever to get your draw engine functioning again. But and also as well, if you play it on 6, you get Zeused, and you just play another one. you know, um, it's kind of like this point where they're never progressing their board. They're just constantly Zeusing your Tamatoas, and one of them's going to eventually stick because no one's on 4 Zeus, I don't think, besides Steel Song players. You play it and then you get free dime out and win. So yeah, it's just mad. It's like I imagine if this was in another TCG like that has limited like Yu-Gi-Oh, you would have like a limit to 1 copy of this in your deck at a time because the card is just insane. And being 6 ink to get 2 items back and be able to play items for free, I can't understand how insane that, especially as the 8 cost one only gets 1 back. Yes, it gets it on quest as well, but yeah, I'm bewildered. The card is a 4x. I know a lot of people. I really love getting DMs and people asking about different lists and saying, "Hey, only pack like 2 Tamatoas," and it's like, I think I would sell all my other cards and hoping to get the 4 Tamatoas. To be honest with you, I think the card's just that good. I'm not saying anyone should do that. I'm just saying, yeah, definitely as quick as you can get the 4x. Or whatever. But it's just play as many of the busted cards as you can. There's always the technique and always the trick in TCGs. So definitely try and get a 4x of that. And yeah, it's just nuts. Like there's no way you put that on the board and just amazing things happen to you. So that's why it's 4 in the deck. 2 Hades because it's very good in the mirror. Like it's pretty much just going to win you a lot of mirrors. Like if they gamble on getting a big Tamatoa out, you play it. Now they're not going to be able to kill that Hades with any ease, and even the answers they have are quite rough. The best thing they can do is let it quest, then they'll run things into it and take it out. But if they strength it, if they Zeus and then do something else, like it's just like a lightning rod for removal. Which bring me on to the Simba as well. The Simba is more for just all the aggro matchups like purple steel and maybe some of green purple. If you can make sure they don't have a Bruno Singer set up. And anything else like that, anything else that you can just put in that bracket of it's going to try and aggro you and just try and race the game. He's just very good there. But what I found a lot of the time is I would put them on the board and they would just soak up removal from people. They would just soak up Zeus's and strengths, and people would run characters into them. And even into Ruby Sapphire, they would soak up like a Sisu, they would soak up a little Sisu or a Brawl. And I kind of get it because if it's on board, it could Simba or Hades, they're on board and they just quest for two and they can do some trading. But it just meant if they were like lightning rods for all the removal when you play your Tamatoas, and your actual like things that are going to win you the game, like they were down how much removal they've spent trying to remove these things. So I just thought that was fairly interesting. And to be honest with you, I don't think it's correct to remove them with your removal actions and stuff. Your removal that you would use for the Tamatoas and the big 8 cost Tamatoa and maybe the 6 cost Tamatoa. I don't think you should put all your stuff into them. But also you're left in a scenario where it's just going to start questing for two every turn if you don't do anything. So I think the best thing to do is start building your board up. But the thing is, both the cards are board equalizers. Hades puts one in the Inkwell, and Simba can do the 2 damage. And you sometimes pair that with some of the other steel removal, or you pair that with a character challenging, and you remove something of theirs. So I think the best response is to start build up your board and then try trade them out. If you're just going to soak all your removal cards into them, I'm just next turn going to play that Tamatoa and just probably close out the game from there. So yeah, they were feeling really good. Even into the Ruby Sapphire, it was like some of the games they would leave it for a bit, and it's like, well, it's quest for 4-6 now. Do you want to try do something? I guess with the Hades you could use a Maui, but then it's also like I don't mind you spending that 5 ink to run something in. The most appropriate answer is having something already on board. Especially for Ruby Sapphire, I'd probably just be prepping the entire board and removing everything, or waiting for the board to build up and then using that big Sisu to kill everything. But into the other matchups, especially like the mirror and stuff like that, it's just there's never really that appropriate time. To remove it, I think, and they've just got such high stats on their health. So I've really enjoyed them for that. I played them in set 6, and I love them as a pair. I think it's really good. They're like the best control mechanics really have, control cards really have for the deck. 8 cost Tamatoa. It's a card that I like because on the majority of the time he's ink, and then he'll win you a game. So it was like I kind of feel like I want to run 3 of him. But the thing is, if you ink one early, you're down to 2, and then if you Scrooge and bottom deck 1, you're down to 1. And at this point, it's just like you just play a 4x of him. Like I said, he is going to close you out games, even into aggro matchups. When you start establishing and controlling that board, you can be like, I'm going to play Tamatoa, and he is going to just quest and keep giving me draw power and just close this game out immensely quickly. So yeah, I don't think in these no-will lists you ever change that. Maybe you drop one if you're going for a more mid-rangey version, and maybe if you are focusing on using the manas instead, you would put the manas in the deck instead, and then maybe drop down the Tamatoa because you're not going to be doing Tamatoa dime taps as much. You might play 1 dime at best in a mana version. But overall, I think yeah, you just play him at a 4 count, and then you know take the wins you can and ink him when you don't. Like I think he's definitely worth being in there. Full Fire the Cannon, as I said, I just hate Diablo. Like I could skip lose into it, and it was just like, well, I just want that 100% chance that I want the best chance I can to shoot a Diablo as early as I can, so I just put 4 in there. We did have 3 Zeuses for a while. I felt a bit worried going down to 2 because I say you need them for removing Tamatoas and sharks and stuff. But I felt, yeah, I've got Hades and like I can probably strength maths and use a fire the cannons to figure it out. So it sort of worked out. We did take out a lot of Tamatoas and different 5 health threats with like weirdly different removal options of just still mathsing it together and figuring it out. So yeah, it sort of worked out. 2 felt fine. Especially as well as like I was thinking more about the green steel matchup where it was just or the green matchups, and I was like I just don't want to mulligan in my hand be like a couple Zeus's and then a strength or whatever, and they just Ursula me and my hand is horrible, and I feel shy about it. So even in testing, yeah, it's like 2's felt fine. I think it also do because you're dropping the removal on the Tamatoas and the sharks and stuff, you have to lean way more into I'm going to be the aggressor every turn and you're going to have to answer everything I do. So you play your Hiram and they answer it, and you play your Scrooge and they answer it or whatever, and then you play your Tamatoa and they answer it, and you play your Ariel and and you just keep going like that. So at no point do you take the break off and like give them a turn to start developing their board and start doing things. We only actually lost 1 game the entire day, and it was an amazing turn that the player did. They had a little Sisu, they inked, they shifted it, and then they also managed to get a mana out. Bearing in mind if they're at like 10 ink already, they've probably won that game. But yeah, that was a point where I just had to take my foot off the gas because I had like two cards in hand, and that's just where it loses because I just gassed out. It's in a weird sense my brain processes his deck as almost like aggro because I'm just constantly throwing stuff at you and constantly being aggressive and constantly trying to close the game out. It's not aggro at all. That's a really dumb statement for me to say, but that's how it's felt because you just constantly want to be the aggressor in the matchup. You want to be the one building up the items, the one threatening a dime, the one who's getting characters on board, the one who's questing for whatever. And that's where you want to be every turn. And then you want to cheat in these removal options when you can, like Singer Zeus, Singer Strength, cheeky like one cost fire the cannons, why not? Um, and yeah, that's where all this sort of I'm gonna pair these up so I don't have to cover all these cards. But yeah, that's all of these things come in. You like they're only really for the big threats. You know, the Tamatoa and anything else has 5 health. So Tamatoa Shark, like Tragic Beast, everything else is like not worth Zeusing. Like if they Scrooge, I don't Zeus their Scrooge. I just like move on and maybe get a strength if I can, or just trade. Um, but yeah, you want it for those bigger targets. And to be honest with you, in Sapphire matchups, like no one's finishing that game like quickly. Like that game's going to time. Like majority of the time, like you're gonna be there for a while. You're going through all of the turns. Don't worry about it. So you can just kind of be a bit more relaxed with your removal and like lean back on it a bit. Take some more favorable trades, but if that means that turn you're still going to be drawing cards, it's fine. So like yeah, it's fairly interesting tempo. They've been fairly nice little chess matches. Some of these Sapphire matchups have. Some of them have been horrible when they just get like three coils out, and they just play a Great Stone Dragon. But the Sapphire mirrors can be fine as long as no one brings Cogsworth, because I feel that makes the mirror a bit sad. Um, but yeah, in the end, yeah, we've got 4 Fishbone Quills. We did at one point play a 1 Great Stone Dragon. To be honest with you, it doesn't really matter because they're all just things that Scrooge can find and then turn into ink. But sometimes you might play a Fishbone Quill just to start making the hand look a little bit better. I think because of the way I've just said I play the deck, I play it in this I just want to be the aggressor, constantly pushing all the time for the win. I feel like Great Stone Dragon would never have been in a great spot for me. You know, taking a turn to play an exerted item that benefits me in the long run just didn't feel like the way I really want to play the deck. So it was only a one-off, and it never really felt like what I wanted to do. And we have 4 foil quills anyway, so we just put the quill back in, put it at a 4x. But yeah, I think this would be fine. I think the fine for anyone to play and pick up. I think the things to take away is keeping these Ariel, trying out these Hades and Simbas, seeing if you like them. Seeing if Ariel is the type of card that would work for you and your meta. I think 4 Fire the Cans is absolutely nonsense unless your entire locals is on green purple as well. But overall, yeah, I kind of like the list. I think I would want to start changing it and taking it up if I was bringing it to a regional. But that's the amazing thing about Sapphire Steel. You can just think, right, what do I expect to see? And it doesn't have to be just your local meta where you play and you know the kind of decks people play and you know what people like. It can just be like, right, what am I expecting to see? Like, so if I was to play an event the other side of the country and be like, well, I know Ruby Sapphire is popular, and I know the Mirror is probably going to be popular, and I've heard about this green purple deck. You could just start building your list to say, well, I want a very good game into these matchups, and then I'll lose points into like Churner Dogs that I can't beat anyway, or I lose points into Purple Steel that I can't, or whatever. But you just think about those matchups, and Sapphire Steel has been this amazing toolkit in every expansion where you've always got the cards in there to build it to win. And I think Kiwi Birds as well is another example of that, where I felt that Sapphire Steel Ramp wasn't performing that well in the last set. And Justin kind of agreed, I guess, because he was playing the Kiwi Bird build, and we went in a completely different direction in the deck because we had the tools of cards like Alice and Pluto, and we built to sort of tackle that meta, and I think it performed quite well for us in our personal goals as well. So yeah, as much as it's a guide on the deck, and I think there's a lot of cards in there, and I think you could definitely try and play this list. I think it's also just worth mentioning that I believe Sapphire Steel is this amazing color combo where the tools to beat certain matchups are all in there, and you just have to go in and build the deck to beat the event or whatever. And if I could ever get Justin on the channel, please do. His thought process for doing DLCs and regionals was always amazing to hear. Like, just amazing. But that's more of a tangent. I hope you guys enjoy a 30-minute video of me talking about a list I played and a bit of a tangent of my love for Sapphire Steel.